This KFAN podcast is sponsored by Builders and Remodelers, exclusive Twin Cities provider of Elements Windows. Get the highest quality windows at unmatchable value. Visit buildersandremodelers.com for more details. And
gentlemen, and welcome to the capital city of St. Paul, specifically Tria Rink, and welcome to the 9 to noon radio presentation. We call it Vox in the Box. I'm Paul Allen. Nordo is on site producing, and Kara Savage is guiding the great ship Love Covenant from FM 100.3 KFAN and the 651 Carpets Plus studios. The A topic for Vox in the Box today involves a tweet. It involves a tweet from our 9:35 guest, Michael Russo of The Athletic and theathletic.com, at Russo Hockey, if you would like to read it for yourselves. But let's not read a bedtime story, because the anticipation is indeed the team will be putting the San Jose Sharks to sleep. But a nice, comforting little story that is available via at Russo Hockey, and it could lead to some very good news for the Minnesota Wild this evening against the San Jose Sharks. And here's Nordo.
Yes, he went all caps, PA. Yeah. Big Minnesota Wild news. This is from Russo, hearing if today's morning skate goes well, again all caps, both Kirill Kaprizov and Jules Eriksson Ek may return tonight against the San Jose Sharks. Let's do this thing.
Hey, the finish line might be right in front of us. To some, it's a red line, surrounded by a couple of blue lines, but the finish line with Jules Eriksson Ek and Kirill Kaprizov returning, getting one under the belt, then a couple of days to chill, then a big one against the Calgary Flames at Calgary, with the playoff positioning being now the 1A. The one topic, the A, is the potential of 14 and 97 returning tonight, which, if only for 3 hours, known as Vox in the Box from Tria Rink and the Wild Morning Skate, an hour and change from now, would be playoff positioning, and the Calgary Flames could get Kirill Kaprizov, Jules Eriksson Ek, and the rest of the guys, the rest of the gang, with one under the belt with a couple of stars, Jules Eriksson Ek in that two-way game, welcome back. Kirill Kaprizov in that superstar game, hopefully welcome back to both these guys. So the morning skate that we're going to watch today, pretty big. And you know what? If there are two people in the state of hockey, specifically the state of hockey market, who know exactly what they're looking for during a morning skate involving a couple of high-enders potentially returning, well, You found the right place, 9 to noon, and Vox in the Box with me and Mad Producer.
Yeah, we'll be breaking down all the F positions, the half wall. We'll be hitting on everything, line rushes and all of that. Basically, we'll be peeking over Mr. Russo's shoulder and copying all of his takes and opinions.
Maybe.
It's about bleeping time. And that's, whether it was weeks and weeks and weeks ago, the obscure nature of Jules Eriksson-Ek. Wow, he left practice a little banged up, and then suddenly a couple months later, we're feeling the burn and the severity of the injury, and Kirill, the ups and downs that he's had over the last few months after what was seemingly an MVP-like season and trajectory that he was on. And the ability to get a few games. Now, what does that look like? As you mentioned, we'll watch it through practice tonight, and if they are both able to play tonight, we'll get to see it in action against the Sharks here. They bring the tank to St. Paul.
Right.
But
I like that.
But the ability to ramp up specifically with that Calgary game looming.
Yeah.
And thankful. I mean, St. Louis finally lost. I'm excited to kind of break down that a bit as well, as they were impenetrable for the better part of the last 2-3 weeks. So, but the ability to see them in person again, man, we've been waiting for this. Man, the general manager's been mum just in terms of setting expectations and all of that.
Well, now we got to hope it happens.
But now we actually got to hope that it pays off. And we'll get to see it in the morning skate here not too long from now.
I like, I don't know if it was intended. If it was, well done. But I like how you laid that out. The Sharks bring the tank tonight because they've lost 6 in a row. So they very much are bringing the tank this evening. Yeah. They've lost 6 consecutive, 19 of the last 24.
Could have tried harder against Calgary the other night, but okay.
I know. They almost beat Calgary. Flames won 3-2. And also, I don't know if this is out for public information, but we're going to make it public information if it's not. Marc-Andre Fleury is going to be the goaltender for the Minnesota Wild this evening, and that potentially could be the final home game Marc-Andre Fleury plays in his illustrious Hall of Fame career.
Yeah.
I mean, there's a chance next week. Sources indicate that maybe, depending on, where they are in the standings and stuff, that maybe Bus plays some in one game, and Marc-Andre Fleury plays the third period in a home game, so he could wave bye to all of the loving fans in the state of hockey. But
if that Ducks game doesn't mean anything, right? It's an opportunity to cap off that season and give him that chance.
Yeah.
But right now, if that Ducks game means something, whether you're trying to hop the Blues or you're trying to fend off the Flames, fanning the Flames back to Canada, you might need to go with Gus Bus.
But you don't have to chance that. What you can do is come see the Wild and the Sharks this evening, and you will see Marc-Andre Fleury starting the game, or purportedly finishing the game, depending on how it goes, and that quite likely could be Marc-Andre Fleury's final home game in the great state of Minnesota and the state of hockey. It is Wild and Sharks on KFAN this evening, and Russo Radio joins at 9:35 to elaborate on said tweet and talk about the squad. Heinze joins at about 10:15. Head coach of the Minnesota Wild, John Hines, about an hour and 10 minutes from now, and Kevin Gorg, fresh off a Masters draft with the wildly successful and highly touted Power Trip Morning Show. He'll be joining 9 to noon about 10 minutes from now. So we'll be calling KG on his drive to Tria Rink, and we will get his thoughts on the big tweet and the potential of the big news. Now, Kaprizov and Eriksson-Ek returning, that's fantastic. If that happens, and the assumption is it will happen, they're going to have to make some roster moves, but that's all of the dotting the I and crossing the T situation. But with the assumption they are returning this evening, losing to San Ho would be very rough to accept, especially at this stage of the season against a team you're 2-0 against this year. And, again, a team that's lost 6 consecutive, has lost 19 of the last 24, and is begging for the finish line. Copyright Mad Producer. Indeed, the Tank Tour, the Shark Tank Tour, hits St. Paul this evening, and XL Energy Center for a game at 7 o'clock. The man calling the game, Joe O'Donnell, Wild Radio Joe, joins 9 to noon about 10:35. But getting those players back with Marc-Andre Fleury between the pipes, potentially and most likely making his final home start of his illustrious career, losing this one tonight would be rough to accept. just like last night's Wolves disaster at Milwaukee. Very, very tough to accept what happened last evening in Milwaukee. And listening to press conferences and listening to players talk about the game and stuff like that, I do think it is good with the 24-point lead that was blown in the second half last night. One of the more embarrassing fourth quarters or quarters that I can remember in the history of Minnesota Timberwolves basketball. And I watch a lot of it, as do many people listening right now. And I can't recall when I saw anything, when I've seen anything like what transpired last night. But the coach and the players, there's one way to take it. You cannot lament it. You cannot mope about it. You cannot point fingers about what happened last night. You got to move on to the next game because you only have 3 left. And the next one is not only the newest, biggest, it's the biggest game of the season. It's not even close. You're at Memphis, and you're right there with the Memphis Grizzlies to get out of that disease play-in. The Timberwolves last night looked like world champions in the third quarter at Milwaukee, and the Bucks started the fourth on a 16-0 run. A 16-0 run, and the sausage-eating crowd finally became engaged in the action last night because their squad was getting killed. I mean, the T-Wolves were going 2-1 of the Bucks, no Lillard, but plenty of Giannis. Then there was that 16-0 run, and dismay, you could tell, what was finding the countenances of the Minnesota Timberwolves. They just could not get out of their way last night. They eventually were outscored 35-8 at one point. A 24-point lead was lost. Anthony Edwards has called the Memphis game a must-win, and he handled the loss with maturity and class. He's like, it happened. I mean, you can't turn it around. There's no sense in dwelling right now. Fix some things. But he called the Memphis game a must-win. Can't recall Anthony Edwards ever talking that poignantly about an individual game. But you went. This is what makes this play-in Western Conference playoff seeding so crazy. Nordo and I talked about it Monday. The Wolves didn't play on Sunday. Golden State lost to the Houston Rockets, and the Wolves dropped in the standings. So I'm like, damn. Normally it goes the other way. A rival loses, and normally you ascend. Chris Finch and I had a good laugh about that yesterday, 9 to noon. But last night, with the way things developed, crazy as it seems, Memphis won. Okay, if the Timberwolves had won last night, they were the 4 seed. They had the 4, if only for a day last night, because Denver, which fired Mike Malone, Denver is losing so much of late. Now their record is like the same as everybody else in this play-in clipping penalty. So you win the game last night, you hold the 4, if only for a day. They didn't, and you win the final 3. And you still probably get a spot in the top 6, but holy cow with last night, man. I mean, Minnesota Vikings fans in the state of hockey who don't watch much of Minnesota Timberwolves basketball, basically the best way I can put it for you is to hearken or recall the Indianapolis Colts at the Minnesota Vikings in 2023 and how you felt at halftime as a Vikings fan. And how you felt after the Vikings came out of the locker room trailing 33-0 and went 3-and-out. Well, flip it. We were the team with the horseshoes on the helmet last night. I mean, just could not stop an onslaught of Giannis dunks and three-pointers from all over the place. And the strange thing with last night is, when I say that I can't recall ever seeing exactly what I saw last night. I've seen blown leads. We've all seen blown leads. But they froze. I mean, they just had their feet in quicksand and would not move. It got so bad at one point in the fourth quarter with Jaden McDaniels, he had to be pulled from the game and did not return. I mean, he was just lollygagging with these soft passes to people, and they were getting picked off, and the Colts go the other way for a touchdown, and the team with the horseshoe on the helmets actually was us. It would be like the Vikings going the other way for a touchdown. Julius Randle was just standing there on so many passes, and he wouldn't move, and he wouldn't dive in for loose balls. Rudy was losing every single rebound. I mean, this is the best rebounder in the National Basketball Association over the last 3 weeks. It's not even close. I mean, I can't remember the last time he didn't have a double-double into the last night's game. And he was getting beat on every single rebound. It was embarrassing. It provided dismay. It was deflating. But the good news is they get a chance to turn the frown upside down right around the corner against the Memphis Grizzlies.
Yeah, they do. Now, I was going to, my Vikings representation or analogy with this would have been the season finale against the Kitties, where there was so much on the line. This is a team with a tough loss to the Pelicans in the recent past, tough loss to the Pacers with so many guys out, all of that. But if you look statistically, over the last month and a half or so, the Wolves have really elevated themselves to being one of the most efficient offensive teams, one of the better defensive teams in the NBA. And we beg for them to get out of this playoff play-in conversation and find themselves in the top 6. Through 3 quarters, you have that thing. And then suddenly the Kitties roll in with the season on the line, the opportunity for the 1 seed in the bye, and you just get trucked at Ford Field, and that's what that fourth quarter felt like. You were looking at shot selection last night, specifically early on in the third, or early on in the fourth, rather. They had hit all those triples in the third. Now they can't hit anything. They're still settling with it. And, you mentioned the maturity in terms of how they handled it after the game. I have to say I don't see how they could have handled it any other way, so I appreciate that, respect the quotes and all of that. They didn't look very mature in the fourth quarter last night in terms of how they handled this lead slipping away. And that was, yes, in a conversation piece over the last 6 weeks where it's been like, man, we're going to come down to the wire, and this loss is going to hurt us. That loss is going to hurt us. This is probably the cherry on top of them all. But you look at a team in 2024-25, this season in general, the number of quote-unquote clutch losses, the number of close losses that have taken place. The Wolves are good enough to do what they did to OKC back in February. They came back from a 20-something point deficit to force OT and beat OKC. But they're also discombobulated and disorganized at times, and to the point where they could allow something like this to happen. I was on X last night, PA. I saw something. This is only the third biggest lead the Wolves have conceded in franchise history, and just watching the fourth quarter last night, I'm like, it could be worse than this. It's actually been worse than that. And so it was just mind-boggling last night, just the inability for them to stem the tide. And as you laid it out with this weird jumbled 4-team tie and rat race to the finish.
So weird.
What was on the line, and them just unable to catch to capture it last night, which brings them to, as you mentioned, this game against Memphis, man. This, it's kind of like a playoff game. That's obviously not, but
must win, says Ant.
And I happen to agree with them. If ultimately the goal is to find yourself in the top 6 and to not bleep around with the play-in situation, and maybe find yourself, you mentioned the Nuggets who just fired their coach. First Taylor Jenkins with Memphis, the aforementioned Grizz. They fire him in the midst of a playoff race, and now Malone, which that's weird. They get their
blew me away.
Yeah, they can their GM too. Like, that's super.
No, they
ugly.
didn't can him. No, I don't think they did. The owner came over the top, fired Malone, and said the GM Calvin Booth, he's not getting an extension.
Oh, I thought the GM was out. That's my bad.
So I think he needs to hang around this. I mean, what an awkward situation for them.
He's just going to sit in his mess for the remainder of this season. Wow. So it's ugly right now. Wolves got to win against the Grizz.
Kevin Gorg, who will be at Tria Rink, he was nice enough to just be at FM 100.3 KFAN for our Ballyhooed Masters draft. He's with FanDuel Sports Network, and he joins us now. KG, what's going on? Welcome to Vox in the Box.
Yeah, what a great day to be there, PA. One of the more important morning skates of the season, to say the least. And hopefully we get some good news and verification on Kaprizov and Eck after said skate today. It's been a long time coming. This team's been through an awful lot, and this could really give them a really big-time jolt here late in the year.
Let's go under the assumption Eriksson, Eck, and Kaprizov play this evening. In fact, having been here a little bit, chatting with some people, I'd make it heavily favored. At least one of them plays, but probably both. So, given you know markedly more about this than us, when you bring back players like this, the training staff, the medical staff, the strength and conditioning staff, and the coaching staff undoubtedly have signed off on these guys being completely ready to go. But like, what are some things that they'll have to be looking for tonight with these athletes coming off layoffs, and you don't want to mess things up first race back?
Well, you're not going to want to put them out there this time of the season with so much at stake unless you're 100% sure they can play a full slate. And when you put players as impactful as Eck and Kaprizov back on the ice, you're talking special teams, you're talking big face-off situations, you're talking latent periods, meaningful shifts, and you're also looking at this pragmatically saying, if they're going to come back now, are they capable of playing 3 games in 4 nights? Because the 2 that the Wild have this weekend also just as important. So I'm guessing that they've really taken their time on this. And we all sat and watched practice yesterday. They skated over at XL Energy Center because of a photo day yesterday. And we walked out of the rink saying it was shocking they weren't on a regular line because they looked incredible. Their speed was there. Their timing was there. They were taking hits. At the end of practice, Joel Eriksson was working on face-offs and some specialty on the individual skill side. And then we were all kind of scratching our head because we all thought yesterday at practice they'd be in lines and ready for the game tonight. That wasn't the case, but they looked the part. And I think if you're John Hines and that coaching staff tonight, once they get the green light, it's all systems go. You're going to play them like you always have played them, and then you're going to see how they bounce back the day after, that travel day to Calgary, because the water.
So with the skate, and Brett Blakemore and yours truly were following the Russo tweets pretty closely yesterday after the pictures and stuff like that. And right before the show ended, it was shared that Eriksson, Ek, and Kaprizov were with the extras. So therefore, I don't know, call it the practice squad of a practice or whatever. So when an hour and change from now, when 9 to noon sees the morning skate here at Tria Rink. Like, what are we looking for? Are we looking for them to be in normal positions as if they were on lines 1 or 2 or whatever in practice today, in the morning skate today? Is that what we'll be looking for?
That's the tell for me. If they're on the extra line, they were on the 5th line yesterday at practice, that could be a tell for bad news. I think if they're going to play tonight, you want to put them in the right lines for some of the drills today. You want to maybe see a little power play time and get them back, building that chemistry with whoever they're going to skate with. I don't know. I would assume that Kaprizov and Zuccarello would be reunited, whether they're with Eck or Rossi as their centerman. I don't know. And one thought process might be you keep Eck and Kirill together to monitor their ice time and maybe back off a little bit on them. But I think the Wild are a better hockey team when you've got, let's just say Zuccarello, Kaprizov, and Rossi are your top line. I love what Boldy and Johansson have together with Eck in the middle. 2 great finesse players that can make plays with that guy that can drive to the middle. I think that's when the Wild are at their very best. Those are 2 really, really good offensive threats up front. So I'll be super curious to see who gets scratched and if they're both playing, how these lines fall together.
Also, Marc-Andre Fleury gets the net tonight, and quite honestly, in the HOF career, one of the great goaltenders in the history of the NHL, this could be his final home game tonight. They're going to bring his kids out on the ice, I believe, before the game, and this could be a very, very special moment for fans coming to the game tonight at XL Energy Center with Flower probably making his final home start, and perhaps the anticipated returns of 14 and 97. That's going to be cool.
It really is. And I do think this was the plan all along. He's got incredible numbers against the Sharks in his career, and this goes back, obviously, a couple of decades, so there were plenty of really good years for San Jose in there. And I also think John Hines and the coaching staff looked at this part of the schedule, and you have that emotional win against Dallas. You've got this huge showdown at the Saddle Dome on Friday night against Calgary, and this is the ultimate trap game. And by starting Marc-Andre Fleury, you kind of give the boys that wake-up like, hey, you're not letting this guy down, not in this spot. And, listen, San Jose is struggling. But we saw the other night against Calgary. They outshot the Flames 18-8 in the first period. They held a lead into the third period, and they played it all the way to the wire in a 3-2 hockey game. This is the NHL, man. There is parity up and down, and the gap between the best and the worst in the league isn't what you think. And so I think this was a very tactful decision by the coaching staff, even before the news on Kirill and Eck came out. Like, we are not going to let our guys take this game for granted. These 2 points are huge. If you want to be a playoff team, let's just put it bluntly, you have to win this hockey game.
Since we have you for just maybe 4 minutes max, power trip this morning, who'd you get in the Masters draft, and what do you like about said golfer?
I love the Masters. I love this weekend. I had the 7th pick. I was super torn between Xander Schauffele and Shane Lowry, and instead of my head, which the head would have said, you go Schauffele every single time, I went with my heart. I love Shane Lowry. He's one of my favorite golfers. I think he's got the game to win at a place like Augusta. He's won a major already at the Open Championship a handful of years ago. So I'm going to ride with big Shane Lowry and have a blast watching the golf while I travel this weekend.
Did you see anything in the bluegrass at Keeneland yesterday that you think plays in the Kentucky Derby?
The winner's interesting. I know Angela likes that horse a lot. I got to tell you, the top 2 favorites right now, as you look at the early betting for the Derby, our journalism out west looks like a freak. I mean, the trouble he had last weekend in the Santa Anita Derby to overcome that and still close down the stretch was incredible. He deserves to be the favorite. I'm going to end up on Sovereignty, Bill Mott's horse, out of Florida. He's been really, really good. He was second last time out. I don't think he was fully cranked. He already had enough points to get in to the Kentucky Derby. So journalism and Sovereignty look like the best of the horses coming out of that race. Burnham Square, the winner, probably the one you want, maybe underneath in the exotics. And then don't sleep on Jareth Loveberry, old Canterbury jockey. Chunk of Gold is going to be 1,000,000 to 1 on Derby Day. He's a horse that can hit the trifectas and superfectas with a Canterbury jockey at a big-time price out of New Orleans. That could be a fun one.
And with the bluegrass yesterday at Keeneland, they had to cancel racing because of weather this weekend in Lexington, Kentucky, so they ran it yesterday. That speed horse East Avenue, I was really impressed with the way he kept fighting, and I think, because he's a speed horse who got tired at the end, I think people are going to overlook him. He's going to be a fat price in the Derby. And if he takes another step off what he did yesterday, that East Avenue, he could be a stunner in the Derby.
I completely agree because of his speed in a 20-horse field on Derby Day. That's quite a weapon. And I think people forget that follow the game like you and I do. Going into the Breeders' Cup Juvenile back in November, he was the overwhelming favorite, had a nightmare of a trip. Got left at the starting gate, never had a chance. He was like 7-5 to win the Juvenile, which is obviously all the best 2-year-olds that are going to be in the Kentucky Derby chase that following year. With that speed, there's a lot of other speed in this race. Right now, there's 5 or 6 signed on that all want the front. Is he capable of going out there and maybe sitting just off that pace? He ran a great race yesterday, to your point, and he got caught in the last jump after doing all of the dirty work. And that's fascinating right now because whoever these horses have been in the prep races, it's the horse that takes the next biggest step. These are like teenagers in terms of us. Like, there's still room for these horses to improve, and their best races are all in front of them. The ones that win come Triple Crown time are the ones that you can project a big move forward. East Avenue, after running back-to-back clunkers, including that troubled trip on Breeders' Cup Day, took a big step. Maybe he's in line to take another big step on Derby Day, and that's what makes betting the Kentucky Derby so exciting. You get crazy prices because the form of these horses can change in the blink of an eye.
I'll see you soon, and can't wait to see you and chop it up regarding the Kentucky Derby and what will be a playoff-bound Minnesota Wild squad. Enjoy the game tonight. Safe travels, and thank you very much for the time, okay?
Love seeing you at the Rink, PA, and what a day to be there. Have fun.
Yep, and I know you're on your way out here. Heinze at 10:15 if you'd like to join. You're more than welcome to stop by, okay?
I'll stop by for sure.
Yep, see you, bud. Kevin Gorg at Gorgomatic21 via the tweet machine. And that opening segment from Vox in the Box territory is courtesy of Steve's Appliances and stevesappliances.com. That's our marathon segment. If you need appliances and you want to save money on refrigerators, go to stevesappliances.com. Now, courtesy of the TimberTech What's on Deck set list, that tweet we read earlier was generated by the preeminent beat writer of the 9 to Noon Covenant, Michael Russo. of Russo Radio and at Russo Hockey via the tweet machine. And he covers the Wild for The Athletic and theathletic.com. He's part of the TimberTech What's on Deck set list. Russo Radio around the corner, followed by Coach Hines at 10:15. Play-by-play voice Joe O'Donnell at 10:35. And the Captain Wes Walz joins us from Tria Rink for Vox in the Box at about 11:03. Nordo produces, and I'm Paul Allen. The Great Ship Love Covenant is guided by Kara Savage at FM 100.3 KFAN. Russo Radio is next.
And
Michael Russo, The Athletic, theathletic.com, at Russo Hockey, joining 9 to noon for a couple of segments up to Heinze. Nice job with that tweet this morning about Joel Eriksson Ek and Kirill Kaprizov, paraphrasing the at Russo Hockey tweet via the X machine. It's if things go well with this morning skate, where we're here for Vox in the Box, and we didn't plan to come out here thinking today would be the day, but I'm also not saying that that wasn't part of the reason we did schedule this, because we put this together over the weekend. Hey, Sicky, what do you think if we come out for the Sharks game? And he said, cool. So it's the timing is good, and the timing of the tweet was impeccable for Wild fans, where I would say, off reading your tweet, feeling the vibe, and getting here and chatting a little bit, that it's favored that Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov will play tonight. I'm not going to make it an off-the-board minus 1,000 favorite, but nevertheless, it's pretty favored, and good morning.
Yeah, good morning. And by the way, I can't wait till your batter's box stuff. Lavelle was talking about it yesterday to me. And
that takes place? That was fun.
Yeah, he's super
excited. We had a good
about
time last week out there.
Yep, and you'll be doing it once a month?
I wouldn't go that far.
Oh, okay. All right. That was just...
well, let's see how they handle the Kansas City game
just
today.
Break news?
Okay.
So Lavelle wants to do it once a month.
Yeah, maybe he's the one. Maybe he gave me wrong news. Look, unless Kaprizov or Eriksson Ek have a setback in the morning skate today, they are both expected to play tonight. Mm-hmm. They are certainly planning on making some roster moves here after the skate, and that's sending Devin Shore and Brendan Gans back to the minors because to activate Kaprizov off long-term LTIR.
Yeah.
That's why they put Gans and Shore on waivers a couple weeks ago, just to prepare for this eventuality. So I am told that they are planning on them being in the lineup, but as long as everything goes according to plan here. But that's why I went and wrote the story this morning.
So what, let's run with the assumption that Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov return this evening. So what happens to Moose? I mean, Moose got elevated to the first line. He scored that big goal against Dallas, second goal of the game after the bubble burst in the Boldy goal. And the noise level in the building, I mean, that's what a bubble bursting sounds like off that lethargy on the island at UBS, USB, whatever it's called. But like with Moose, I mean, like what happens with him?
I think so. It depends on what you want to call the first or second line. If it were me tonight, I think you have a line of Kaprizov with Zuccarello just to give Kaprizov immediately that familiarity back with the guy that can put the puck on a platter with him, and then you put Marco Rossi right in the middle. My guess is, do you remember the Grief line?
Yeah.
The incredible Grief line, the T-shirts, all that stuff, Greenway, Eriksson Ek, Foligno. I bet you Foligno is with Eriksson Ek with Boldy on that line. Mm-hmm. And then at least you're keeping him in your quote-unquote top six because he has fit in like a glove there. And then you move Johansson to where I think he should be, and that's a third-line guy.
Yeah.
Probably with Freddie Gaudreau, who's been great. And then we'll see who's on that right side, and most likely Ryan Hartman centers the fourth line as long as Devin Shore is down. And then the question is, do you take Brazo out or you take Hinostroza out? I did a podcast with Anthony LaPanta the other day, and he made a good point, that he thinks Brazo is probably going to be in the playoff lineup because you acquired him for a certain element that he could bring in the playoffs. He's been playing better lately. He's playing with his size. And so it would not shock me tonight if we see sort of a precursor of what John Hines is thinking as the line's going into the playoffs, and that would be Brazo on the right of the fourth line with Trenyan and Hartman and Hinostroza out of the lineup.
If this works tonight, if they get out of this, like say, okay, they look good tonight, they beat the Sharks. Well, then how do the athletes look out of the race? How'd they come out of the race? And you got travel, but you got an extra day there. No, actually, you would play Friday, so it's like a normal play-off play. If this works, and they assume Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov assume high-end status in a relatively short amount of time, and they get to pull minutes off players who have been playing too many minutes, and they get themselves a little bit of a break. The potential for this to be really good heading into the postseason, at least the potential is there, right?
Yeah, well, when I was jotting down lines today, when I was at my laptop writing the article of what they could possibly be, which is sort of what I just said to you and what I'm assuming tonight, it suddenly looks like a playoff lineup, right? Just by having those two guys back in the lineup and eventually Jake Middleton back, on a pair with Brock Faber, and then obviously Brodin back with Spurgeon, or you could do either way. But they're suddenly looking like a playoff team, and that's what they've been buying time for. Like, this has been it's been a slog here the last 21 games that Eriksson Ek's been out, the last 28 or 29 games that Kaprizov's been out. And it just becomes such a taxing process for a team to just play this much without those top players. I think that we've seen those games lately where it just becomes very, very hard. Like, that game against the Islanders, 7th game in the last 11 nights, and nobody wants to hear excuses, but when you put so much into it and you have guys expending energy and minutes that you're talking about that maybe should not be getting those minutes, this just gets the domino effect just puts the lineup and the pieces back in place. So we'll see. I'm not going to go out and say they're going to win a playoff round now, right? I mean, they're going to be healthy or not. They're going to be the underdog against any team that they face, whether it's Winnipeg, Dallas, or Vegas in the first round, and we're hoping for Vegas.
Yeah.
So
go to the Sphere.
Even though of the three teams I just mentioned,
some Don
it's
Henley.
going to be the hardest one.
Go see some Don Henley at the Sphere.
Yeah,
you got to face him sometime. Might as well do it first.
I called Jeremy Rutherford, our St. Louis Blues writer, up yesterday at the Athletic. I called him up. I'm like, the reason why the Wild should play Vegas is because I appreciate Vegas and you don't appreciate Vegas.
Good point.
And that should be the final straw.
So if they're playing tonight, that means they're healthy enough to play, which means they'll be full bow. What I'm curious, though, from your perspective is once they're back, regardless, I mean, the obvious is what happens on the stat sheet, but is there anything that you look at to be like, yeah, Kaprizov has that spark again. Yeah, Jules Eriksson Ek is definitely back in the mix, regardless of the result.
Well, we know that the first shift he's going to get into a goal-mouth scrum, so that's probably how you know that Eriksson Ek's back. I mean, that guy has been probably just begging to have somebody punch his face for now 2 months. So he just loves that stuff. So that's how we'll know if he's back. In terms of Kaprizov, I think, we will be looking for those bursts, the edge work. And then what I'll definitely be looking at is on the bench between shifts and just seeing how the two of them, are recovering between shifts. Because, we all know that Kaprizov has, that guy could probably play 60 minutes. It's unbelievable, like his ability to recover between shifts. So that's what you also want to see, because there's just no way to replicate that. One, with Andy Ness, as great as Andy is, there's just no way to do that in a skate. Even in practice yesterday, the contact they took was brief at the end. Like, it was not a contact real practice. So what they've been doing off the ice, there's just no way to prep them for tonight. And the reason why I immediately woke up, or prep them for, really the last 4 games. But the reason why I woke up today and started making immediately calls is because, and I was thinking about it all yesterday and all last night, like, if not tonight, when?
Yeah.
Like, if they're not coming back tonight, are you really just going to throw them into a must-win game on Friday without any sort of prep? And if they're not ready for tonight, like, when are they going to be healthy? So I think that they just had to get final, yesterday was weird because John Hines he wasn't really able to give us any update after practice, but it sounded to me like a guy that clearly 100% didn't know, because he needs to be given the green light on when they are given full medical clearance, but also how they felt after that contact. And, he talked to us before those guys were even off the ice. So I really genuinely think they didn't know yesterday. And then, after some discussions all day yesterday, probably getting final clearance from the doctors, they made the decision that they're going to come back tonight as long as everything goes well here at the pregame skate.
You pulling for potential first-round matchups for the Wild? With you said I would prefer Vegas because you appreciate Vegas more than Jeremy Rutherford, right?
Right, 100%.
Well, my phone was blowing up after you said that, and I got texts from David Windjam at Planet Hollywood and Jeff Sherman at my friend who runs the Westgate. They both said, Vegas also appreciates you.
I know, they definitely do. It definitely does.
So
it loves me.
And
lately.
your brother Adam.
Yeah.
So they're pulling for that matchup too.
Yeah.
Now speaking of matchups, Wild and Sharks this evening. When we return, outside of the great potential that Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov return this evening, alas, there's more big news with this evening's game, and we'll share that when we continue with Vox in the Box from Tria Rink on your home for Wild hockey. FM 100.3 KFAN.
Superior Landscape and Irrigation is celebrating 21 years this Saturday, the 12th, from 9 to 6 at the grand opening of their new showroom in Maplewood. Enjoy the brick oven pizza and chances to win a hot tub, solo stove, grand opening, exclusive deals, and a ton more. Find out all the info at kfan.com /calendar.
Radio Flower tonight, potentially, and I'm just going to say most likely his final home game, wearing the Christmas colors. I guess he could play next week depending on where the Wild fall in the standings. But Michael Russo has a nice story at The Athletic that includes Marc-Andre Fleury, and once again, Marc-Andre Fleury starts for the Wild this evening. And do you think it's going to be his final home game? His kids are going to come out on the ice tonight, the whole thing?
Yeah, I mean, it'll be his final home start, I would say. That's the best way to couch it.
So you got that third period steam?
Yeah, that's just the way that I'm assuming. He is under the impression it's his final home start. His agent's coming in, bunch of buddies, some family. Unfortunately, I think because it was always figured he would start the finale. His mom and his sister, who were just here, actually went home and can't come back. But a lot of it will depend on what happens Tuesday. Do they need to win the game? But Gus, the problem is that we assume that Gus is going to start Friday, and we know that Gus is starting Friday in Calgary. And then we assume that Flowers' last NHL start will be the next night in Vancouver. And if that's the case, the playoffs, the soonest it can start is April 19th, which is next Saturday. It's not guaranteed that's the day the Wild start. So minimum 8 days without a start for Gustafsson if he doesn't play on Tuesday. So I think they want to at least get him a couple periods. So they've promised Flower nothing other than this is probably your last start. So let's make it a final cool send-off. And he is under the impression it's his final start.
All right, now, with the news, things are good for the Wild right now, at least as the Wild goes approaching the finish line. They beat the Stars. When they off the lethargy that was the Island, the game against the Islanders. It's like I saw something from the Timberwolves last night in the fourth quarter. Yeah. I never thought I would see from a team that had Anthony Edwards, Julius Randle, Mike Conley, and Rudy Gobert healthy and playing. But that game against the Islanders, and I was thinking about you too, because you've stressed 9 to noon, without, getting too far into it, that the team's tired, that at times you can visibly tell that they are tired. And, you got a bunch of players on this team playing 5, 6, 7 more minutes a game than maybe they ever thought they would play. And they have a right to hit a threshold. I understand that. Well, that was kind of like that game on the Island. They just couldn't get going, and their feet were all heavy and everything. Yeah. When they went down 1-0 against Dallas, I gave them about a 10% chance to win that game. Yeah, I'm not kidding you.
Yeah, same.
I'm like, here it goes again.
Yeah.
I've watched Dallas a couple of times. The Dallas is not as good, in my opinion, as that Dallas team that just handled Everson a couple of seasons ago, but nevertheless still better
Did
than.
you see what they did last night?
Yeah, they blew a lead.
Yeah, 3-goal lead with a minute left.
You've got to be kidding me. I knew it was a 3-goal lead
in 1 minute for the Vancouver Canucks, and then they won overtime.
Well, see, now look what the Wild are.
Ottinger wasn't in net for that.
Big deal.
But I'm just saying.
The Wild is now putting teams on negative vibes. Because that's, potentially beating Dallas. Then Dallas returns and does that. Maybe we put Dallas on a negative vibe. Then you got the positivity with the potential returns of Eriksson Ek and Kaprizov this evening. So that's all beautiful. Fleury, final home start tonight. Mm-hmm. That's beautiful. Which behooves yours truly to take us back to the island if you can. When I was reading your game recap, you and Joe co-wrote that, I believe.
No, Joe was that was just me.
Okay, yeah, and I got down to the part where the assembled media is waiting outside of the Wild locker room, and now Middleton, Bo Horvat shoves Middleton into the boards. Should have been a major. Should it have been a major?
Yes.
Yeah, should have been a major. It was called a minor. Everybody lost their minds. I'm watching it on TV. Russo Radio's there. It's the maddest I've ever seen John Hines since he became coach of the Wild. His head got all red and everything. He was just mad.
Yeah, it was very Dean Evison.
Yeah, right. But Evison has hair, so therefore you can't see how red his whole head gets. And I felt bad for Heinze. Then after the game, Russo Radio and the assembled media outside of the Wild locker room, in case you met it, even though I basically read through the whole thing the next day from The Athletic. Bill Guerin pops out of a door and basically is like, don't ask anybody about that penalty. Go ask that bleeping bleep hole, talking about the ref.
Twice.
Well, no, but see now, so here comes Heinze. He's going to do his post-game press conference. Head's no longer red. It's the normal hue. So maybe he's settled down. Russo Radio establishes himself in the front row as he's wont to do. Hines about ready to begin. Guerin pops in again. The general manager screams to Heinze, don't answer any questions about the penalty. Have them ask that bleeping bleep hole. Yeah. Talking about the ref. Yeah. You've seen a lot. Ever seen that?
Well, yeah.
Really?
Back in the day, I used to watch Brian Murray just actually storm into the ref's room. In fact, the reason why general managers face 6-digit fines is because of the days of Brian Murray going down to the refs room. They are not even allowed to go there. So unfortunately, Billy's got to let off steam that way. He is allowed to talk to the supervisor, which was Paul Dvorsky that night, as are we, by the way. And we can, I could text Stephen Welcome, who's the head of officiating. I could text people in the situation room.
I was texting Andy Von Helleman.
Yeah. But I am not allowed to go ask that bleeping bleep hole.
There's no pool reporter?
Not anymore in the NHL. No,
wow.
I vividly remember back in the day being pool reporters. In fact, during that 99 Dallas Buffalo Stanley Cup final, I wasn't the pool reporter on the foot in the crease, but I was a pool reporter one night. But
Seifert has that honor after Vikings games.
Yeah, we are not allowed to do that in the NHL. So what we are is if there's a supervisor at the game, we could try to get him. But we're not allowed to go to the refs room.
Right.
So, that was as angry. And I think it showed distress that night. I also think, I don't think Billy actually designed it this way, but, a lot of times if Billy thinks oh my God, we just lost to the Islanders who lost 6 in a row and they're going to hammer my team and blah, blah, blah.
And how the team looked.
That's a good way to distract the writers and write about that. It's not a stupid thing to do if you're a GM. I don't think he designed it that way. I think it was fresh emotion because he had just... he comes down after the game. He goes into John Hines' office. He goes, hey, what did the ref tell you? And John tells him, and it probably made him explode. And then he storms out of there, and then sees me, as the first person, which I'm always seem to be. Where all of a sudden, I can make him snap on a dime, and he definitely snapped.
You didn't say anything?
No, I just sat there with.
He just saw you as the adversary.
Yep. I did let him know. I'm like, just so you know, you did the I did let him know, I am quoting you verbatim of what you said. Also to cover my own butt.
No, that's good.
He did it in a huge hallway full of people. There are cameras everywhere. I don't know if that thing's going to wind up on NHL Network or SportsCenter or TSN.
You got Brian Trottier having some celebratory night, wondering what's happening.
So, and at the Athletic, we don't have to beat around the bush. We could use those words basically. So I did go with the quote because I also wanted to, not try to, like if he's going to get fined because all of a sudden that video comes out. I didn't want all of a sudden people to go read the Athletic.
There's video?
I was covering like he did it in a hallway full of cameras and everything. So I'm just like, I better make sure I write about this. So that's
obviously journalism 101.
Yeah.
Not everybody handles it this way. Super professional of you that you told him, hey, I'm putting that at the Athletic.
Yeah.
Because if you don't, that's wow.
And to get to your original point on this, like walking around that locker room was very disconcerting. Like those guys were devastated. Zuki could barely speak. Goudreau, it's like I don't know what to say. Faber was kind of defiant. You just saw it. And for them to then go play Dallas and play one of their best games of the season. I mean, their 5-on-5 play that game where it was extraordinary.
Right.
It was very impressive against a team that usually beats them pretty well. Yes, it was a second of back-to-back for Dallas, but still, it wasn't like your typical get in at 3 a.m. second of back-to-back. It was they played afternoon game to afternoon game. So, they were here by evening, had dinner, all that stuff. So it wasn't, it was just an impressive performance by the Wild to rebound from that. And I loved what Foligno said after the game, where he basically is like, we're tired of talking. We're tired of telling you all, like, what we have to do to win. It's now time for us to effing go out there and do what we're telling you we have to do to win. And the Wild went out that night, a couple nights ago or afternoons ago and really performed really well. And now the key here for these final 4 games is to continue this, to not let their foot off the gas because they have the cavalry coming back.
Yeah.
There is that there's going to be this boost tonight when Kaprizov and Eriksson Ek, not just by the way with the players but the fans, when those guys come out at XL Energy Center, there's going to be this boost. There's going to be this motivation by the team to really deliver for Marc-Andre Fleury in what's going to be his final home start of his career. But sometimes when you get these great players back, you suddenly think, all right, they'll do it now. We've been doing it for 3 months.
Yeah.
Now let them go. And the problem is that, San Jose is tricky. They've got the firepower. They've got real good young kids. There's always a naivety.
But Celebrini and who else?
Celebrini and Will Smith and those guys.
Will Smith, though.
And the problem is that, sometimes when you play teams that are so bad at the end of the year, the pressure's off them. They just come out and play loose. There's a naivety to it all. And you could stumble.
Yeah.
And, it's really interesting here. The Wild have the Ducks and the Sharks once. The Calgary Flames have the Ducks and the Sharks once.
These kids tonight, with Fleury making his final home start, they've lost 6 in a row. They've lost 19 of 24. I don't care that they outshot Calgary in the first period and nearly beat the Flames. The Flames are middling or slightly above middling in the first place, in my opinion. The Wild should be minus 320 tonight, and these kids are going to be asking Flower for autographs during the game.
That actually might happen.
Okay, let's be realistic.
Yeah, that actually might happen. But I will tell you one thing. The game, I think Joe covered the other game in San Jose, but the first game that I covered in San Jose that the Wild won 3-2, I think it was 3-2.
That was the second one.
So I covered the first
right.
one.
Yeah.
The first one.
Yeah.
Celebrini was freaking extraordinary.
Wow.
Like, not only did he beat Flower with 2 unbelievable shots, but he's going into corners with Marcus Foligno and coming out with the puck.
Just went down to minus 240.
Yeah. So I would not take Celebrini for granted tonight.
I'm not.
Yeah.
And you can't. And the Wild isn't exactly a plug-in bit that you plug it in. And
but this San
something.
Jose team, I mean, they've William Eklund's a great hockey player. They've got some really good veterans like Barclay Goudreau and Toffoli and those guys.
Yeah, you can stop there.
So you know what I mean. Like it's not just a given. So they got to go.
Who's their goalie?
Their goalie is Gorgiev, who went in the Blackwood trade with Colorado.
Oh yeah.
He had a good stretch with the Avs, didn't he?
Yeah.
Why am I forgetting?
But he's not very good.
Not very good right now.
He's 46 games this year, and a lot of those are with the Avalanche, and his goals against was 369 and 873. Yeah. And let's put it this way. There's a reason, like, the Avs essentially overhauled their entire goaltending in the middle of a season, which is not very easy, and they got Blackwood, who's been playing really well for them. And the Avalanche is going to be a tough out, too, for if they play the Dallas Stars in the first round. I'm definitely expecting that Gabriel Landeskog at some point is going to come back for the playoffs, might be even game 1. We were hearing yesterday that he might even go on loan to the Colorado Eagles to get some games in, which just shows you that a guy that hasn't played in 2 years contenders. I don't think he's going to be the Landeskog as old, but they've got. They're going to be a real contender. Vegas is a contender right now with, unfortunately Hurdle's out. Eichel didn't play last night with an injury. Winnipeg, they're going to get Pionk back. Velarde is a big loss for
Winnipeg
them.
beat the Blues.
Yeah.
If you beat the Blues right now, then
they look tired too. Yeah, I watched that game the other night. The Blues look like they were at the end of their.
Really?
They had to. And if you actually look at the last 2 or 3 wins of their win streak, you always when you're winning at the end of a win streak, a lot of times you're playing with fire and you probably should be losing. And you saw the last couple, like they were getting lucky, scoring last second tying goals and winning in overtime and things like that.
That ain't luck.
So and the problem is that Holloway. That's a huge loss for them. He's been great. Now all of a sudden Snuggerud's playing top line. I don't know if he's ready for that. Dallas again is going to be
Snuggy got an assist the other night.
Yep. So
time for 2 more.
So you were talking earlier about how they need to handle things. Fleury getting a start tonight. You want to see Gus Bus getting playing time with that potential layoff of sorts, or just that odd timing stretch. How badly do you think, in some respects, speaking to a group that maybe, whether it's tonight or down the stretch, it's like we weathered the storm, and now Kaprizov and Jules Eriksson Ek are back. And in some ways, they do have a right after this stretch that they've had where scoring a goal feels like climbing Everest. Yeah. They might be tired in general. The ability to have maybe a few days on the back end of this thing to chill and regroup. How do they handle that?
Yeah, I mean, I think the mature way and the way
they
that
can't
the
rest
leadership
now.
group, well, exactly. They have to win tonight. Like, you want to go. First of all, again, it's really interesting here. You got them playing San Jose, who's the worst team in the league, but you got tonight Calgary and Anaheim. So if you blow this and Calgary wins in Anaheim, now suddenly they're 2 points back going into Friday's big showdown in Calgary. So you've got to, if you could win this game, you really have put yourself in a great position to make the playoffs. So, and then, you're buying time for Middleton to come back. And thank goodness he's not nearly as bad as it looked the other night. He's just feels, I think, like he was hit by a bus.
He comes back tonight?
No, he's not back, but he's not nearly like when he left that game the other night. I didn't know if it was broken neck.
Looked like a concussion.
It was. I think he just feels like I didn't know if it was collarbone or shoulder, but he's avoided major injuries, so that's the most important thing.
Are refs responsive to that? Whether it's Billy G doing his thing, and
I think sometimes they're responsive, but not when they're called an F and bleep hole.
Yeah, that's fair.
Well, the general manager.
By the way, every time I say this, I'm worried about the producer the engineer back at the studio.
Tara's on it.
That's fine.
Finger on the.
Does the GM button get fined?
So far, he hasn't. So I don't know if
because he didn't say it to the ref.
Well, that's the thing. I don't. Normally, he would be. So either one of two things happened.
What if he got him fined?
Either they thought you're right.
He's right.
Or they don't read The Athletic because I was the only one that basically put everything down there. So
that's brilliant.
It might be the latter.
Yeah, that's brilliant.
Yeah, but you got Middleton coming. You got the Z Boyum coming after the Frozen Four.
Ooh.
That signing. So there's
Boyum next week.
Yeah, I mean he should.
Damn.
If the Wild are locked and loaded for that 8th or 7th hole in the finale, I mean I would think that Boyum's playing, and you're going to want to give a Spurgeon a night off, maybe play Chisholm and get Brodin a night off, that type of stuff.
Yeah,
maybe the other thing is maybe they hold Middleton out until the end, so we'll see.
Yeah, last one minute and change, you get it all with Declan Chisholm. I don't even really know how to put this. I mean, I want to say how bored is the coach with him right now, but I mean, we had basically the own goal situation within the last week. He's trying to get the puck to Gus, and that whole communication or exchange was just terrible. We've had some bad moments, and then they sat him. But when you talk about people being tired, or like people have been stretched too thinly because of the injuries and all that. Am I wrong to have him be one of the first that comes to mind?
Yeah. I mean, I don't know about tired because he's still gotten enough nights off.
Too much responsibility bestowed upon him.
Yeah, I mean, he's not your prototypical offensive defenseman that I think that we all thought he was going to be when he got to Winnipeg, and he doesn't produce enough to be that. And defensively, he could be hairy at times. What I will say is Declan's a proud player. He knows he messed up. That's the second time that's actually happened in the last couple months, where a similar play. Doesn't play against the Islanders. John Hines immediately comes out at the morning skate and says he is not coming out of the lineup because of the turnover.
Oh.
He's just, we feel like essentially they wanted to get him a game the other night, so they took him out and put him in the Ranger game. Obviously it backfired. But, as I wrote a couple weeks ago, he's become this weird but somewhat handy guy where anytime Brodeen's out, you could put him in the top 6 with Spurgeon, but he's not your third pair guy. So it's not often you see a guy come in and out of the lineup just to play top 4, but not the third pair.
Yeah.
And it's because he does value Merrill and Bogosian so much. Mm-hmm. So
he's become the trick in the Boo-Ray game.
But I will say what I loved the other night is, so he misses the one game. It's his first game since the turnover that I'm sure he was embarrassed about. And what does he do? He gets essentially the third assist on both their goals in the third period.
Good point.
Especially the breakout on the Foligno goal to Boldy. It was just a great play by Chisholm there. Mm-hmm. Unfortunately, then he has the brain cramp and ices the puck with 15 seconds, and it became hairy there. Like, he just puts himself into positions where he's just got to, calm down, play it smart, play it simple, and not try to be Bobby Orr, because you're not. So, I think that's where sometimes, there was you got to play the clock. There was no reason with the to try to do that the other night and ice that puck. So, but I love the fact that Chisholm rebounded. I thought Chisholm did a really quality job rebounding from a real tough game at Madison Square Garden.
You, my friend, are the very best. Thank you very much for the
Here comes
time.
Grandpa Gorg.
And we'll talk. Grandpa, what I call you in that tweet the other day? Gramps Gorg or something like that? A covenant claps for Kevin Gorg.
Yeah, congratulations.
A new grandfather. Got to see the grandbaby in Florida recently. And
youngest looking grandfather ever.
Yeah, and God worked his beauty on that grandchild. Woo, that's a beautiful child. All right, thank you, Michael.
Yep.
At Russo Hockey via Twitter. Follow him there. And also subscribe to The Athletic, as 9 to noon does. Minnesota Wild coach John Hines joins us next. It's KFAN.